I'm going to be reviewing the Arendal 1610 Tower 8 speaker. Now, these speakers were loaned to me by Arendal directly, but I was not paid or given anything in return, and they went back a couple months ago. The speaker's build quality is where I'm going to start because they're $7,600 per pair, which some of you may balk at. The performance is there subjectively and objectively, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. The weight is about 100 pounds per speaker, roughly 45 kilograms, and they're almost 4 feet tall when the feet are installed. If you do not install the feet on this speaker, then you essentially seal up the port, which is at the very bottom of the speaker. So you have to install the feet. With that said, when you do that, you'll have to turn the speaker upside down. That's where the port is. Don't do what I did. Do not remove that foam plug that seals up the port. Don't do that and then try to install the feet, because probably what you're going to do is drop the damn foot inside the cabinet and hear it play like Plinko from Price is Right. It just went dunk, 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 dunk. You could hear it drop all the way down. Took me about 15 minutes to get that thing out of there. I finally did. And then I put the bung back in to seal up the port while I installed the feet. As you can see, the speaker in the color that I got is really, really nice. And aside from the build quality itself, I really just genuinely like the look of the speaker. Now, those are subjective things, right? You may think it's ugly, but I kind of wanted to get that out of the way because that certainly plays into the psyche of what I hear when I listen to the speaker. My thing, and it's been this way for a long time, it doesn't even matter sometimes how good the speaker sounds. If it's ugly, you're not going to want to buy it. So it's got to sound good, but it's also got to look good. And this speaker does a really good job of balancing high fidelity sound with higher output and also really good looks, the latter being my opinion. Now, is it the most neutral speaker that I've come across? No. And in this video, I'm going to do some comparisons against the MoFi 888 and the MoFi V10 because those are just around the same ballpark in price. And it kind of gives you an idea of where this 1610 Tower 8 stands in comparison against some of its competition. Once I got these unpacked, I set them up in my living room, brought them about 3 feet off the front wall, the wall behind the speakers, and I played around with aiming for a little bit. Now, typically I'll start with the speakers pointed directly at my ears, on axis, towed in 0 degrees. I personally liked when I towed these speakers out just a little bit. And I'll tell you why, and it may surprise you. Going back to the subjective aspect of just looking at a speaker, if it's a very large speaker that consumes a lot of floor space, when I point it directly at me, there's something in my brain that makes me feel like the soundstage isn't as large. And that's weird, but I've learned to accept that with my own brain. So what I found is that taking the speakers and towing them slightly off axis, pointing them a little bit out more into the room, past my shoulders, kind of crossing behind me, if you will. The subjective portion, the psychoanalytical portion of my brain just was like, oh yeah, this is nice, because they just looked like they fit better in the room. Once the setup was done and I felt good with where they were placed and aimed, then I started doing more longer term listening. Now, the thing that I really like about this speaker, it's got some killer mid-bass punch in the area of about 80 hertz. It's got probably about like 3 decibels more. That can be helpful because a lot of rooms will have a typical 70 to 90 hertz null. This gives you a little bit more output in that area. Now, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of saying you should buy a speaker that's designed for your room. You're never going to do that. But when you compare the speaker to other speakers, that additional output in that region, for me, was kind of nice. It gave it a little bit more punch and a little bit more grit. The other thing that I noticed about these speakers was that in the upper mid-range to lower treble region, in that crossover region, there was a bit of a dip through there. Now, I've said this before, I'll make it a little bit more quick. I prefer a more neutral response, but I would rather have the dip than a peak through that area, because a 3 decibel peak around 2K, that's going to hurt my ears. A 3 decibel dip around 2K, not as big of a problem. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to take some edge off of some instruments. The bite of a sax or a trumpet, any other kind of instrument, brass especially, probably isn't going to bite you as much and make you blink, okay? Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to consider when you're evaluating these speakers for your purpose. You can use EQ and bring that up, but natively on their own, that's what you're going to run into. Bouncing back and forth between these speakers and then some neutral critical headphones that I've been using for a little while now, I found that the mid-range kind of stood out in some areas, not necessarily guttural, but a little bit more chesty, if you will. So there's a little bit of additional weight in that mid-range. With 3/8, these speakers slam. They get down and they play dumb loud for any home theater or even a living room setup if you're listening in stereo. Now, having said that, because there is that uptick in the upper mid bass, it makes the lower bass sound like it rolls off a little bit more sharply than some of the other speakers. And I'm going to show you that in the data as well. Before I get into talking about the objective data and correlating that with what I heard and what you're likely to hear, I want to play you this pink noise clip that overlays the original pink noise clip with the convolved pink noise clip of the speaker. The idea here is that you're going to compare reference to new 1610 Tower 8 version, and you're going to be listening for the differences. Then I'm going to show you the data, and that'll help you understand a little bit more about what the data actually is telling you in terms of audibility. And for what it's worth, all of this data is captured using my Clipple near-field scanner. It is a state-of-the-art robotic device that allows me to get anechoic data out of a speaker in a non-anechoic environment. Why does that matter, you ask? Because as a reviewer, I can set these speakers up in 5 different rooms and get 5 different sound profiles, especially in the bass. Analyzing the performance of a speaker using objective data allows you not only a baseline, but if you understand what you're looking for, then I can tell you pretty well if the speaker is going to do well in a reflective room, if you're going to need acoustic absorption on the side panels, if you're going to need to get a subwoofer for sure, or what kind of output levels this speaker can take. All of that kind of objective data is incredibly helpful because you got to consider that, yes, your ears are the final decider, but you can't listen to every speaker in the world. Having the data allows you to make a meaningful comparison before you plop down all of your hard-earned money. And here's a quick clip for fun. I take large speakers outside and I'll do some standard ground plane measurements to verify the accuracy of my Clipple measurements. For small speakers, I don't have to do this, but for really tall speakers where there are multiple drivers spread out or ports at one far end away from the tweeter, I like to do this as a sanity check just to make sure that my setup for the Clipple is correct and the results make sense. So here's a quick video of me setting this thing up and waving to my neighbors who probably think I'm crazy. Speaking of comparisons, let's actually do some of that. Rather than me tell you about this speaker, I'm going to give you an idea of the actual objective performance comparison from the Arendal to the MoFi 888 and then the MoFi V10 from left to right. Now, this photo isn't perfectly to scale, but I'm trying to give you a general idea as best I can here. And I will caution you that I can't possibly cover all the data in a short video. So I'll have all this data up on my website, hopefully by the time I publish this video, and if not then, within a few days. Let's start with the Arendal CEA 2034 dataset. We can see here that the on-axis frequency response in black is pretty linear, but you'll notice there are some deviations, specifically around the bass region. If we look at the bass to the lower mid-range, upper mid-bass area, there's about 2 decibels or so difference. And then looking in the mid-range, there's a little bit of a bump there. Now that's going to give that, again, not guttural sound, but it's going to give more weight to certain vocals. Then if we go to the higher frequency, we can see that there's about 1.5 decibels to 2.5 decibels difference between the treble region through this region right here versus that mid-range region. The CEA 2034 data set is relative to 2 meters. So I also set this up to give me the frequency response at 4 meters, which you see here. And I'll go back to 2 meters and then 4 meters again. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because Arendal recommends a seeding distance of around 4 meters. So I wanted to give you this additional data. As you look at the directivity, there's a flattening around 1 to 2K and then some increasing directivity in the tweeter region. Now, most of that's going to be because of the gap between the tweeter and the mid-range below it. And we'll see some of that in the following data. Moving on to the MoFi source point 888. Well, if you're already looking at the directivity, you can see that the 888 has more smooth directivity. The MoFi 888 is a coaxial speaker design, so I expect better directivity overall than I do with a separate tweeter mid-range below it that you typically find in a two-way design, or in the particular case of the Arendal, a three-way design. Pretty smooth on-axis frequency response as well. You do see some jaggedness, but overall, both of these speakers do pretty well. Then if we look at the V10, there's additional raggedness, but the output consideration of the V10 MoFi is pretty dang significant, and it's a very imposing speaker with large dynamic range. So then let's just look at the frequency response on axis, talk about sensitivity and bass extension. Sensitivity of the Arendal is about 88 decibels at 2.83 volts, 1 meter. F3 measured at 41 hertz, F10 at 27 hertz. Again, I want to point out this bump in this mid-bass region because that's really what's shaping the fact that the F3 is a little bit higher than you might expect it to be. If this were more flat through here with a more gradual roll off, then the F3 and the F10 would extend lower, but you wouldn't have that punchy bass. Now, I'm imagining most people buying this speaker, maybe I'm wrong, are probably more home theater oriented, and they're going to use subwoofers. And in that case, you don't really necessarily need your tower speaker to get down to 30 hertz. However, if you look at something like the MoFi 888, you'll see that its extension is 34 hertz at F3. And notice it doesn't have this bump in the mid-bass region around 80 hertz. It's more flat through that region. It also has a sensitivity that's about 2 decibels or so lower. And then if we flip to the V10, the monster MoFi speaker, it's not as linear as the previous options that we just looked at. It has roughly the same sensitivity as the Arendal, and it extends a little bit lower in frequency response. Besides the nice bass thump, and besides the sheer output and dynamic capability of the Arendal, I also like the soundstage radiation. Nice stereo width. I like a speaker that's about plus or minus 60 degrees wide, which is where this speaker kind of sits. It sits right in that area. For me, a speaker that radiates more widely than that can tend to be too obtuse. That's not the word I'm looking for. Obfusified? That's not the word either. Anyway, the focus of the images within the soundstage just aren't as sharp. But the flip side of that is a speaker that's too narrow, even though it will have really sharp focusing, it's not going to sound as enveloping. So you have to strike a balance. This is totally subjective and 100% up to you. I like where this speaker sits in terms of radiation. If we look at the 888, we also see that it has pretty wide radiation, maybe even a little bit wider than the Arendal. But in the very higher frequency, we see it starts to narrow up. And then if we go to the V10, we see that it also has about plus or minus 60 degrees radiation. Here's where the major difference is going to be between the Arendal and the MoFi. Remember, the Arendal is a three-way speaker, tweeter, mid-range, 3 woofers. Because of that, the vertical offset causes typically some vertical lobing in the frequency response. See that hole in the response? Around, what is that, 3K? That is going to create an issue if you're not on axis with roughly the tweeter, but really it's right between the tweeter and the mid-range. If you go below that, you're going to experience some suck out, and it may sound like a loss in dynamics or clarity or attack. If you go above that, hey, you're probably okay. Now, does this matter for people who are sitting at a fixed height? Honestly, not really, but it matters for those of you who have home theaters where you have multiple seats. It's something you want to keep in mind because the person sitting behind you could hear something different than you do, depending on how you aim the speakers or set them up vertically. If we go and look at the MoFi 888, we see that through the upper mid-range area, you don't have that lobing. You don't have that suck out like you do right here, and you have more consistent frequency response. through this region, as you can see by this darker red. So now let's look at the estimated in-room response. This is assuming a typical reflective room. Now there are caveats to this, but I want to say typical reflective room. If we look at the Arendal in-room extension down to about 40 hertz, extra kick in the mid-bass area around 80 hertz, and you're probably going to have a laid-back upper mid-range lower treble sound. Moving on to the MoFi 888 in-room extension to about 35 hertz, and you can see there's a dip in the mid-range area around 400 hertz or so, and then another dip in the upper mid-range lower treble region. For the MoFi V10 extension down to about 35 hertz again, you're going to have a little bit less weight in the upper mid-bass instead of the lower mid-range, and you're still going to have that laid-back upper mid-range lower treble. This is the interesting thing. Even though there's a lot of characteristics that are shared, namely the upper mid-range lower treble, the speakers aren't going to sound the same. This plot doesn't show you everything. It doesn't replace you listening to the speaker, but again, it can give you a very good idea of what you're going to get when you compare it to other speakers. Let's talk about dynamic range capability. This is the Arendal 888, the V10. All three of the speakers have no problem with dynamic range. Now, what about distortion? Now, I'm not showing harmonic distortion. If you want to see that, it'll be on the website. Let's talk about the real distortion that matters, the multitone distortion. With the multitone distortion, they're pretty similar, but I want to call attention to the Arendal. It has lower distortion in the higher frequencies. Now, this could be because of the amplitude modulation of the coaxial speaker in the other designs. Or it just could be that the tweeter in this particular Arendal is a lower distortion tweeter. 888's multitone distortion and the V10's multitone distortion. All low distortion speakers. So you're probably left wondering, okay, which one do I buy? Okay, let me see if I can summarize this as best I possibly can, and I'm probably glossing over some elements, but these are the things that matter to me. The Arendal's extra mid-bass bump around 80 hertz, I keep talking about it. I keep talking about it because it matters. It gives you more weight, more oomph. I like that. Now, it's possible that it may be too much in a room that already accentuates that, but for me, it was something that I enjoyed. For the MoFi speakers, what I enjoyed was the overall sense of envelopment, especially the ability to kind of walk around the room and do things. For example, my kitchen is right behind my living room. Very wide open space, not Dixie Chicks, or it's just the chicks now. Anyway, so when I'm listening to my speakers, sometimes I'm walking around the room and it's just nice to have a good overall spread of sound. You won't necessarily get that with the Arendal vertically, so keep that in mind. In terms of output capability, all three of these speakers are going to get dumb loud. Subjectively speaking, I think the MoFis are a more immersive speaker overall. Objectively speaking, they're all pretty similar. Subjectively speaking, I like the wood grain look of the MoFis. Also subjectively speaking, the build quality on the Arendals is ridiculous. Just turning the speaker upside down, you just feel like, yeah, man, this thing's made of lead. That said, the MoFi V10, I want to say is like 160 pounds a piece, and the 888 is 94 pounds. So having lifted both of these up on a 4-foot stand, yeah, they're all freaking heavy. If you listen to music or you watch movies that have content below about 40 hertz, with the Arendal, I'm going to recommend you get a subwoofer. With the MoFis, I don't think you're really going to have to get a subwoofer, so I'm going to let those stand on their own, unless you just want to get additional subwoofers to help spread out modal issues in the room. That's the end of this review. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I hope you appreciate it. It's been a while since I've done a speaker review, and to be honest with you, it's kind of hard to get back on the track of this, but maybe I fumbled my way through it. If you're interested in buying these speakers, I will drop an affiliate link for this speaker below, but I'll also do the same thing for the MoFis. I'm not shilling. If you're going to buy them, consider using that affiliate link. If you're not, that's fine too. Or just don't use the affiliate link. But either way, you know how I operate. If you want to join me at patreon.com to help support, you can do that too. Or you can use any of the generic affiliate links to buy anything you want from Amazon, Crunchyroll, Best Buy, Audio Advice, Target, etc., etc. Doesn't matter what you get. Just click the generic link below and then buy whatever it is you were going to buy already. That helps me out. That way I don't take on sponsors and I'm not taking payment from manufacturers. I'm just trying to be transparent about how I generate income from the channel. It's not my job. I do have a day job, but any extra income is pretty nice to have. I will talk to y'all later. Take care.